Me and my mother have been living in this apartment for about 5 years now. So a couple days ago, I took a shower and dried myself with a specific hot pink towel. There's only one hot pink towel. And when I was finished getting myself together, I left the towel sitting on the toilet because I knew I would come back to it after I washed my face. So I go to my room, get dressed and stuff, then went to the bathroom to wash my face. When I was finished, I was looking for my towel and it wasn't there, so I went into my room to see if I brought it into my room with me, but I couldn't find it. I asked my mom, it's only us in the house, if she's seen my towel or went in the bathroom and moved it, but she said no, and she's been sitting in her room for like the past 45 minutes watching her show, and 10 minutes pass, still looking for it, so I decide to look in the closet where the towels are, and there it is folded up with all the other towels. I wasn't under the influence or anything, and I remember clear as day placing it on the toilet before leaving the bathroom. I've come to the conclusion that it wasn't me or my mom who moved it. What makes it even more weird is the fact that when I found it in the closet, it wasn't wet or anything. This morning at sunrise, I watched a duck land on the roof of the apartment complex across the street. It's unusual to see ducks in my neighborhood, but they do live in the area. The duck walked the roof perimeter and then flew down to the ground and stopped beneath the apartment sign across the street from my house. I was journaling at my desk in an unlit room with one of my cats on the desk. We were both watching the duck. I looked down to scribble a picture of the duck under the sign. In just seconds, I looked back up, and the duck was a black neighborhood cat that often sleeps in my yard. The cat has always freaked me out a little, since it sleeps under my backyard deck and startles me at times. I looked everywhere for the duck, and the cat just stood in the exact same spot, cleaning itself. My husband and I moved into our townhome summer of 2021. The guest bathroom has an all-white countertop, and there has always been this annoying bright pink stain on it in the corner. Kind of looks like a pink Sharpie stain. I've tried everything to get this stain off. Lysol, bleach, rubbing alcohol. It won't budge. So I put this little decorative thing in front of it to hide it, since I don't really want to replace the countertop right now. Problem solved. Since moving in, I've always used Lysol to wipe the countertop, and the mark has always stayed looking the same. Same brightness, same length. It was there last time I wiped the counter with the same Lysol I always do. Today, I go to clean the bathroom, and I move the decorative piece and see that the stain is gone. Husband said he hasn't cleaned it since I last did when I know I saw the stain. Where did it go? Not sure if this is a glitch in the Matrix situation or maybe more of a timeline thing. Like maybe something shifted in the previous owner's timeline to prevent the stain from ever having been made. Either way, I'm spooked. I give a lot of presentations at work. There was one particular presentation me and my team were working on, and after drafting slides and working on it, we decided it wasn't working, and we scrapped it, and we had never given it. The draft slides have remained on my laptop for a good 2 months, and every now and again over that time, I've seen that draft and thought about deleting it, but always thought maybe we'd go back to it one day, and it would be useful to keep it. Yesterday, I had a meeting, and I was prepared with a different presentation. My colleague introduced us. He then said, "And now, Adrian will give you our presentation," which is this draft we scrapped and had never done. Keeping professional and thankfully having kept the slides, I was able to make it up on the spot, but it was a bit of a mess. After the meeting, I asked him what had happened, to which he was equally confused as to why I had fucked this up and told me we had done that presentation several times. We had a pretty friendly disagreement about it. He convinced he had introduced the wrong thing and him thinking I had just fucked up. And I would have agreed to disagree if it wasn't for him showing me a video on our company's Instagram page of me giving this very presentation. I specifically remember the conversation of us scrapping it, of seeing the file on my laptop several times over the last 2 months, and having that thought process of whether or not I should delete it. It even features a video I've never watched, and when I've seen that in my drafts, I've thought to it, I should probably watch that, which I have now watched whilst giving the presentation for the first time, desperately using the 3 minutes it took to play it to try to think about what the fuck I was going to say next. I'm convinced that I have never given this presentation, in spite of the fact there is a video of me giving this presentation. I've had plenty of time slips in my life. You know, times where the beginning and end are way further apart than the middle can account for. Like a 10-minute walk taking 4 hours, that sort of thing. I've kept them to myself because, well, I was the only witness. And if we're speculating on something supernatural versus me just being crazy, well, I don't like my odds. This is different, though. This is multiple witnesses, same story. It was New Year's Eve. My husband, 2 kids, 13 and 9, and I were staying in a motel. We planned to watch the fireworks from the balcony at midnight because we were in city center and they'd be all around us, but that was still hours away. The sun had just set and the sky was a misty purple. I was making dinner, sliders, which at that point were 20 minutes from being done. As I was setting up our plates, we started hearing fireworks. I checked my phone for the time and it was a little after 7. The fireworks kept going off in the distance, and the kids were getting excited. They were out on the balcony to look and asked me to come out. I kept assuring them they were cool, but the real show started at midnight. I started to wonder myself after a while, though. The fireworks just kept going, more rapid than I expected for 7 in the evening. I went outside and saw bursts of color exploding all over the sky. I marveled at it. If this was 7, what would midnight look like? Then I checked my phone again. It was 12:15. I couldn't even tell you what I did after that. I was initially disappointed along with the kids and confused along with the kids. But the more we thought about it, the weirder it seemed. We'd all witnessed the sun setting literally an hour earlier. I'd started dinner while it was still light out, and it was still hot and just barely ready. I checked the time and did the math for them, how long it would be while the sky was still purple and the fireworks just kept going. It went from 7 to midnight in a few minutes. I don't even have a wrap-up for this. I don't know what to say. I'd blame it on my phone, like the clock being off, but that can't explain midnight right after sunset. We're in Utah, not the Arctic Circle. Husband works overnight, so he's used to time feeling weird, and that's what he chalked it up to. Son took it in stride because he's young and time travel is his jam. Daughter and I are the ones wondering years later what the fuck happened. She'll bring it up whenever there's a special occasion and I'm cooking, like neither of us can trust when something should be done anymore. We both wait on events like we might miss it because we know we already have before. I know this will sound fake, but this happened to be back in September 2019. Before the strange day, I had a massive headache. Usually, I walk to my house from school every day with my friend, buying the same drink every day in the same store every day. Eventually, the next day, I woke up. Although everything seems normal, it doesn't. I can feel something wrong. Everything was wrong. Not knowing what it is, I just walked to school. School was different since that day. Everyone seems to be friendly with me and know who I am, but I've never talked to them or did something to be popular. I ignored them. I also realized that since that day, time was much quicker. An hour felt like minutes, not the opposite way. When school ended, I was waiting for my friends to walk home, but here's the twist. My friend was different. Usually, he talks to me while walking, but that day, he was wearing headphones, listening to this band, which I never heard of. He was laughing at me because I don't know the band, which I never knew. I just ignored him and kept walking to the store. When we were at the store, I grabbed that drink that both me and my friend drank. I was confused when my friend grabbed a different drink. I asked him, "Are you all right?" He laughed and said, "What is wrong with you?" and claimed he has always drank that drink since the first day we met. I freaked out. I ran home, and since that day, every day was like this. What happened to me? I was walking with my boyfriend and we were thinking about where to have a quick snack. There's a cinnamon roll shop a couple towns over, so I said, "Let's go there, you love cinnamon rolls." Except a stranger that was walking in the opposite direction on the sidewalk with her friends said, "Let's go there, you love cinnamon rolls," at the exact same time and using the exact same intonation. I quickly gasped and covered my mouth. After a few paces, my boyfriend and I burst out laughing. Did the simulation collapse, or was it just a strange coincidence? I was laying in bed this morning, 8 a.m.-ish. No TV, no phone, nothing on. Then all of a sudden, I just hear the name, Ellen. No one else lives here. There was no one else. I checked the entire house. It was a full-rounded woman's voice. Just freaked me the fuck out. Whatever spooky thing happened, I'll be fine. I relaxed until about 4 and went to go buy some alcohol. It's spring break and I'm definitely getting drunk tonight, especially now. While I walk into the liquor store, purchasing some beer and some 99 bananas. Register guy checks my ID despite knowing me and says he has to start checking since he got in trouble. I get in my car and start to drive home. I start to think, man, that voice Ellen thing was strange this morning. Somehow, I don't know how in this tomfuckery, I flash, teleport back in space-time, glitch, back to driving to the liquor store. I look over in my passenger seat and there's no beer or 99 bananas. I pull in, park, wonder if I have daydreamed it. I go back into the liquor store, and you know what they don't have? 99 bananas. The dude said he ran out like 2 days ago and told me he'd have more in by November. WTF. I just bought a bottle and they were stocked, with multiple more bottles on the shelf. So I got a different drink, and I go to purchase them and pull out my ID. By the way, I'm 21 looking, 17, so it makes sense. And the clerk goes something like, "Nah, dog, you're good, I know." I go home, paying extra attention to my surroundings and the liquor in my passenger seat. I get into my house, and there on the counter is the 6-pack and the 99 bananas. I still have the others, though. This is impossible. If he sold out 2 days ago, how did I get that? When did I get that? How did it get there? I live 20 minutes away from the liquor store. I didn't just forget about the drive. It was an instant teleport feeling thing. I don't know, I'm weirded out. The last part of the story is I start drinking a beer and getting Reddit. My first notification was a recommendation for this sub. I'm a little spooked. This all happened today. This happened a little over 2 years ago, and I still think about it multiple times a week. I was on my way to my shitty minimum wage job, driving down a shortcut that goes through a neighborhood. Regardless of the time of day, the streets are always active. Meth will make you antsy like that, especially in the summer where this took place. I was about halfway down the road to the stoplight, and to the left of me, a car has its blinker on to make a turn. There was a lady sitting on her porch steps smoking to my right, and a person walking against traffic on the other side of the street. I was trundling down the pothole-filled road when everything just stopped. Porch lady was frozen with the cig to her lips, way longer than is typical. Street man stopped mid-stride, and the car's blinker stayed on. That's what really made me realize some fuckery was happening. But my car was still moving, and I could still move my body. Somehow, I ended up the sole person on that street not frozen. People here often talk about a feeling of wrongness. It's very hard to describe, and oh boy, I sure as hell know what y'all mean now. For me, it had liminal space vibes, but heavier, if that makes sense. It was also disturbingly quiet. Sounds were kind of muffled, like when you put a pillow over your head. I'd drive maybe a couple yards to the bend in the street, and then everything is back to normal, like somebody flipped a switch. People moving, the turn signal blinking, no weird auditory distortion, just normal, everyday reality. I was unsettled and jumpy for the rest of the day, and I had a rougher time than usual falling asleep. The only real explanation I can possibly think of is maybe the onset of a migraine. I have severe chronic migraines, and I can get funky aura symptoms, but those are completely different, and I can recognize them easily. At the time this happened, I had an MRI done for my migraines not even a month prior, so no detectable brain tumor or damage. Regardless of the cause, the experience was deeply disquieting, and I would very much like to never experience anything like that ever again. Earlier this morning, I was trucking on my way down to San Diego when something strange occurred. I was pulling a 53-foot trailer and moderately heavy, so I was cruising pretty slowly in the slow lane doing about 55 miles per hour. In my side mirror, I see a semi-truck approaching from behind in the lane next to me going faster than I was. He passed me, and as he passed, I noticed his windows were all blurry, foggy, dirty maybe, to where you couldn't see inside his truck or see who was driving. Anyways, he passes me and he's bobtailing, when it's just the truck without a trailer. So he's considerably lighter and faster. Whatever. He gets far enough out of view and I'm just driving along. About 2 to 3 minutes later, I look in my mirror again and here comes the same truck. Keep in mind, at this part of the freeway where this occurred, there are no exits. He comes up next to me and passes me again. I'm thinking, what the hell? I've been going slow this whole time, haven't passed anyone, nothing. Same dirty old truck, same foggy windows. It had a distinctive look. Well, this doesn't make any sense, I start thinking. He's going too fast, so I can't even catch him, even if I wanted to. I think about it for a few minutes and eventually forget about it. Maybe 10 minutes later, I didn't even notice him in my mirror this time. He passes me again, for the third time. Once again, I haven't passed anyone. He's always going much faster than me when he passes, and I can never see inside the truck because the windows are just so dirty or foggy. That was the last time I saw the truck, and yes, it was the same truck. I've been doing this trucking stuff for a while, so I know the differences in trucks, and notice the small details. How the hell did I get passed by the same truck 3 different times? This just happened like 5 minutes ago. I was playing with a fidget spinner and trying to see how fast it could go. I was spinning it super fast and then lost control and dropped it. It hit the ground, but when I looked, it wasn't there. I looked for a solid hour before giving up and going downstairs to make breakfast. When I got downstairs, I noticed something in the living room. It was the fidget spinner. I looked up and there was no hole in the ceiling. Not like there would be anyway. The fidget spinner wasn't heavy enough to break through my bedroom floor and the downstairs ceiling. Really weird glitch. Who knows? Maybe if I spun and dropped the fidget spinner downstairs, it could have no-clipped out of reality. I am 100% certain a global time reverse took place around May. I think it was like 9th to around 14th May, around there. Might not even just be global, but regional. I vividly remember it because I came home at around 8 p.m. I never drink or do drugs. Afterwards, I played games for around 3 hours. It said 11 p.m. on the PC as I left. I also ate in the middle of my play session. The clock on the PC was showing the actual time. So I brushed my teeth, went to bed, stared at the wall a little bit until I checked my phone and it said 9 p.m. I would never go to bed this early, and I was also completely exhausted from playing games for this long. I still also felt completely full, despite the fact I ate at 9 p.m. And it's 9 p.m. again? I noticed the time was the same on all clocks around the house. I asked my friends about this, and they said they also felt like something changed. Most of my friends said they felt like they slept way longer than the clocks that they did. This isn't even creepy or anything, but just makes me believe that the world as we perceive it is way more complicated than we think. I don't think we can even explain this with science and stuff. Has anyone else experienced this and still vividly remembers it around then? Just now happened. I'm 28 female riding in the passenger seat on my way to get dropped off down at the college campus. Woke up about 40 minutes ago, dry shampooed my hair and brushed it all out. If you're familiar with dry shampoo, it requires a lot of brushing so you don't leave white splotches of visible product on your hair. So I brushed my hair thoroughly, threw it up in a bun, and there were no clips or bobby pins in it or anything. I haven't even touched any today. So we're riding down to campus, and I run my hand over the top of my head and feel a clip. The type I normally have, but haven't touched in days. In fact, I haven't even seen them in days, because usually our cats find them and turn them into toys. Now suddenly, there's one on top of my head, running parallel alongside my hair, which is not the direction you normally put clips. Normally, you'd put them perpendicular to your hair so that it actually holds your hair in. It makes no sense. I'm not excessively tired. I know I didn't do it and just forget. My partner swore to me that they didn't put it in my hair. My head hasn't been touched since I brushed it out. I've never experienced a glitch before, but I've followed this community long enough to know they happen. What just happened? I'm actually just a moron. Clipped to the head hole of my sweatshirt, put my sweatshirt on backward. Clip ended up parallel to my hair, clipped randomly on top. Mystery solved, thanks to you meddling kids. Throughout my life, I have experienced these short moments, usually around sleep or wake or after deep contemplation, where everything would suddenly look unfamiliar, and it would be accompanied by this intense awe at how anything exists. It's happened a handful of times and only lasts about 5 to 10 seconds. Then things feel normal again. I call it a state of consciousness to differentiate it from just thinking about existence that isn't accompanied by this sort of derealization. It literally feels like for a few brief seconds that you have bypassed some type of software block that doesn't want you to go beyond, and you are quickly pulled back in. It's also a bit scary when you are in that state. Has anyone else ever experienced this? Throughout my life, I have experienced these short moments, usually around sleep or wake or after deep contemplation, where everything would suddenly look unfamiliar, and it would be accompanied by this intense awe at how anything exists. It's happened a handful of times and only lasts about 5 to 10 seconds. Then things feel normal again. I call it a state of consciousness to differentiate it from just thinking about existence that isn't accompanied by this sort of derealization. It literally feels like for a few brief seconds that you have bypassed some type of software block that doesn't want you to go beyond, and you are quickly pulled back in. It's also a bit scary when you are in that state. Has anyone else ever experienced this? Years ago, I was in the lowest point in my life. I harmed myself and had so many suicidal thoughts. One day, I decided to end all of it. I wrote a letter saying goodbye to everyone and listing the names of my loved ones at the end of my note. I put myself in the bathtub and taped the note on my door. I put my favorite songs on so I can at least have a little fun while I die. I made a little drink of poisonous stuff to drink just in case I didn't die. I drank the drink first and paused, because that was literally disgusting, but I had to swallow. I then proceeded to stab myself in the throat 2 times. Can't remember, but I was too weak to stab fast because I was in so much pain. Then I passed out. I didn't die, but instead, I saw my lifeless body in a camera angle. It was truly disturbing, seeing myself dead and deformed like that. Fluids were coming out of my mouth. My eyes were still. Then I woke up, the drink still in my hand. I was confused, disturbed, and terrified. I cannot process what I just saw. I decided not to do it because I can't imagine my parents finding me like that. I'm 4 years clean of self-harm and thoughts. This isn't strictly a glitch in the matrix because most of it can be explained scientifically, but it's still a crazy story we like to tell at parties. The scene is the summer of 2019. We had just moved to Louisiana several months prior, but we were still settling in and about to experience our first Louisiana weather event, Tropical Storm Barry. Now, my fiance and I had each been through many hurricanes, and Tropical Storm Barry wasn't supposed to be very strong, so we decided to weather it out at home. We went to Costco to get a bunch of emergency supplies. When we got back from Costco, we both felt odd. The sky didn't look right. The storm was still supposedly 48 plus hours out, and when we looked at the satellite imagery, it was still far out at sea. But nonetheless, the sky looked very off, and everything was covered in a bright red haze. We finished bringing everything inside, and suddenly my fiance said, "We need to leave. We need to leave right now." I tried to convince her it was just pre-hurricane anxiety, but she was adamant. We had to leave. The sky had turned from bright red to a sickening shade of green. I grabbed a case of waters, a case of protein shakes, and some of the food we'd gotten from Costco, and we drove about an hour north to stay the night at a hotel. We woke up to the sound of blaring sirens. Apparently, multitude of tornadoes had touched down around our neighborhood during the night, and while none of them had hit anything important or hurt anyone, we still felt unsettled and decided to keep driving north. We looked at a bunch of hotels on the map, decided on one about 45 minutes from Jackson, Mississippi, and off we went. When we got there, again, something didn't feel right. It looked like a nice hotel. It wasn't in a bad neighborhood or anything, but it was the same feeling we'd had back home, and it had already saved our asses once before. So we kept driving for a while, until we were driving through the center of Jackson. We drove by a hotel, and we looked at each other and said, "That's the one. That has to be the one." Instant relief. We booked a room for a couple of nights. That night was fine. The night after that, the hurricane hit and dumped a ton of water on New Orleans. Our neighborhood was under 24 inches. All emergency services were down. Nobody could get through the water. It was a total shit show. We watched in horror from the safety of our hotel room. The night after that, some friends from New Orleans joined us, and we figured we'd just wait it out for the next couple days because the hurricane was slowly making its way toward Jackson, and we wanted to wait until it had passed us before we started driving back. The day before we were going to head home, the feeling came back. This time, it came with a vague pain in my stomach. I took some Pepto and went to sleep. When I woke up, the pain was unbearable. After our friends tried to talk me down, i.e., "It's just nerves, man. We've all had a hell of a week," I started throwing up and asked to be taken to the hospital. None of us had ever been to Jackson, and nobody knew where the hospital was, but as luck would have it, one of the best hospitals in the state was right across the street from our hotel. By the time I got to the ER, I could barely walk. They gave me a CT, found I had a ruptured appendix, and operated on me within the hour. We ended up staying for another week while I recovered. To this day, we have no idea what happened there. If we had stayed in New Orleans, I certainly would have died. If we had stayed in the first hotel we found, I probably would have died. If we had stayed in the second hotel we found, I probably would have been able to get to a hospital in time, but would have been cutting it real close. I lived because we listened to a bad feeling my fiancé had. Still weirds me out to this day. This is one of the biggest personal glitches I've ever had. I work in the admitting department of my local hospital, and I also help the business office with miscellaneous billing duties. One of the things I do is keep track of obituaries. When someone's obituary appears in the newspaper, I check to see if they still owe the hospital money. If they do, I clip the obit, fill out a form, and then keep track of how their insurance pays and whatnot. A few years ago, I've worked there 20 plus years, one of my coworkers in the dietary department retired and passed away soon after. I know because I processed her obituary. This coworker's daughter was really good friends with my cousin, so the daughter was even over at my cousin's house the day after my coworker's funeral. They had a big wake for her mother and everything. Today, as I'm working ER registration, the daughter comes in and says her mom is in the ER. I was brought up short. I thought, what? I didn't say anything for a moment, so my office mate had to step in for me and look up this lady's mother. Sure as shit, it's the woman who died years ago. My office mate lets the daughter back into the ER to see her mom, and I am unable to find the obit form I filled out. Edit 1. I heard back from my cousin, and he's as weirded out as I am. Coworker's daughter has no memory of the wake or anything, but she said she's been getting this stuff from the people around her from the last few days. People remember her mom dying, even funeral details and the like, but coworker's daughter doesn't remember any of it. Plus, her mom is right there. It's freaky. Edit 2. I spoke with cousin instead of texting him. Coworker's daughter said it was her dad that died and not her mom, but she also said that's not the way any of the people who run into her remember it. They're asking where her dad is, how he is today, he's not answering his phone or texts, etc. And to her, the man has been... Edit 3. I've been asked if I had any close calls or moments where I could have slipped from one universe to another, and yes, there was one, but it was a little over 2 years ago. I was getting my evening medications together, but I was tired and screwed them up. I ended up taking an entire full bottle of glipizide, which is a medication that lowers your blood sugar. I accidentally took enough to kill a horse. I realized it right as I laid down for a nap due to extreme exhaustion, and I felt really weird going to sleep. Looking back on it, I think I fell asleep forever there and woke up here. Edit 4. Oh my goodness, thank you for the awards. Edit 5. While the vast majority of you have all been lovely, I've been getting some really angry replies and private messages about what happened with the glipizide. I'll post here what happened to me with the medication, and I don't know what more I can add. This is how the incident occurred. If you don't believe me, that's fine, but take your vitriol and anger somewhere else, please. Here's what happened. I take a lot of meds for a lot of stuff, epilepsy, diabetes, etc. So I have a lot of empty pill bottles lying around. That day, I had an empty pill bottle with the label still on it, so I figured I'd just grab all of my evening med doses out of my bedroom, take them to the dining room, and just swallow them with dinner. I've done it loads of times before. Like I said, I was tired that night, so when I pulled out my bottle of glipizide, I got my dose and then accidentally closed the bottle with my evening meds in it and put it back where the bottle of glipizide went, and then took the full bottle of glipizide with me to the dining room. I wasn't paying attention. I didn't look at the bottle when I took my meds that evening. I just threw the pills back and swallowed them with dinner. The pills were tiny, and all I noticed was that they didn't quite feel right in my mouth. I didn't think anything else about it, though, because the idea of taking a whole bottle of pills seemed ludicrous to me. What kind of idiot would do something like that? Me, apparently. When I stumbled back to my bedroom, I checked the bottles because something was very, very wrong. I had discovered the rest of what should have been my evening meds in the bottle. I had mistakenly put in the glipizide place, and that's when I saw I had downed a full bottle of glipizide. I wanted to grab my husband, holler, shout, do anything, but my body was made of lead. I could only crawl over to my bed and flop on it, and when I woke up, Everything was fine. That's what I mean by going to sleep there and waking up here. I don't think I woke up there. I think I died there and woke up here. Been dead over 10 years. My boyfriend and I live 2 miles outside of town in the country. Yesterday, I had to run into the grocery store, so I grabbed my boyfriend's keys, as my car is not drivable right now, and headed toward town. About a quarter of a mile up, the most unreal, freaky thing I've ever had happen to me definitely happened. I saw a vehicle approaching from the opposite direction that was unmistakably my boyfriend's car, the same one I was driving. I looked at the driver as he passed, and it was my boyfriend driving it, looking at me just as confused as I was looking at him. I called him immediately and asked what the hell that was, and of course he had no idea what I was referring to. And I didn't think he would, since he was at home when I left. I got to the grocery store and sat in the car shaking and dumbstruck, trying to figure out what just happened. It took me a good 15 minutes to feel sturdy enough to go into the store. I don't know exactly what happened, obviously, but I have my thoughts. I don't really know if this belongs here, but it's such a weird but insignificant event that I need to share it. I was at a family event today, Queen's Platinum Jubilee, and unfortunately, my family eats that kind of thing up. There were a few relatives I knew but hadn't spent a lot of time with. While I sat away from the main celebrations with my partner and one of the kids, she was 9 and took a shine to us. I thought I could smell smoke. Didn't vocalize it, didn't even look up from my phone, just thought it. The girl looked at me and said, "You're right, they're having a fire next door. You can see the smoke." She then proceeded to point above the trees where there was smoke. My partner asked what she was on about, and she didn't reply. I later asked my partner if I'd spoke out loud about fires, and she said no. I also shouted her name for like 10 minutes after and got no response. So less psychic and more glitch. Was also sober and don't believe in the paranormal. I know it sounds like a load of bullocks, but here's my story. One day, I was taking a shower at my flat. Everyone was gone, and it was just me and my roommate's husky. I was in the shower, just casually enjoying the warm water, and the dog started barking a ton. At first thought, I assumed someone was probably at the door, so I got out and began to put a towel on just in case someone was actually at the door. While I was doing so, the dog was barking more and more, but then the barking changed into perfect English, and the dog was yelling out these words, "I just want to be let outside. Please let me out." I literally backed away from the bathroom door and exclaimed, "What the fuck?" I ran outside the bathroom to see the dog barking with his paws up on the back door. He turned back and looked at me and started barking some more. I let him out, and I just sat there stunned. Has this happened to anyone else? So, to put this into perspective, my girlfriend of 2 years lost her mother unexpectedly 6 months before her and I met. Her mother and her were very close. They were practically best friends. Now, it's New Year's Eve and we're headed to her best friend's house for a party. My girlfriend decides to wear one of the last things her mother gave to her before passing away, a pair of gold earrings. At some point throughout the night, she loses an earring, devastated. We all retrace our every step, and we do manage to find the backing to it, but no earring. It's now 24 hours later, I'm lying in her bed by myself with no clothes on while she's in the shower. I'm reading a book when all of a sudden, the freaking earring gets dropped onto my bare chest out of nowhere. I look around, nobody else in the room, nobody else in the house, just my girlfriend mindlessly showering in the room beside me. I do not have long hair, and I was not wearing a hat. Absolutely zero chance it was stuck to me. I've been on a bit of a binge of these stories, and it made me wonder if I had experienced anything like this. And I thought back and realized I have, although not as freaky or crazy as most. I'm quite a skeptical person, but this always has me at a loss. My girlfriend's family lives a little ways away, and so often I'll drive us over to visit them. Without fail, and I mean every time. When we leave back home, and for some reason only when we leave the town to head back home, this man is out walking his dog at the exact same position. Not sure, it could of course just be his routine, and I'm just having a timing coincidence, right? Nah, we're talking it could be 3 p.m. or it could be 11 p.m., and he's still always cutting the corner exactly when we pass as if he's spawning in. It's so odd. It's like seeing it replayed over and over and always so consistent. We always mention it on the way back and check, and without fail, he's there. I play a lot of games, and I swear to you, if this was happening in a game, I'd be complaining about the lack of non-player character variety. One of these days, I'm going to just be brave and pull over and just politely ask how frequently he walks his dog. Who knows? Maybe he's thinking, damn, every time I be walking my dog, that white car passes. In February 2020, I was snowmobiling for the first time. My boyfriend at the time was driving all day and finally let me drive at the end of the trip. We had been dating for 2 months, and this was our first trip together. I'm going around the last bend, and I accidentally floor the snowmobile instead of pushing the brake. I go flying off of a cliff and end up 50 feet down. The snowmobile is on top of me, upside down, still running with the bottom part spinning. My helmet has flown off, and my head is 1 inch from a tree. I'm terrified. My boyfriend managed to roll off the back at the last minute and is trying to save me, but the snow is really deep and he's having a hard time getting down the steep cliff. My legs are fully submerged in snow with the snowmobile on top, and I'm not sure if I'm paralyzed. He calls for help, and all these men run down to save me. When they finally pull me out, I can stand, and it's the happiest moment of my life. I'm not paralyzed. I don't have so much as a scratch on me. Do I have a concussion? Maybe. It's hard to say. The snowmobile also miraculously has minimal damage. Only the little plastic windshield part is cracked. In hindsight, this moment is where everything changed for me. But you have to understand, I didn't piece this together and come to this realization until months later. These are the differences. There was suddenly a pandemic. Everything was shut down within a few days. In my old timeline, there was a virus going around, but it had only impacted a few people and was similar to a norovirus or flu, not big enough to be worried about. I had a different job at the time. I chalked it up to the pandemic. We were on the trip because I was about to start a new job. I'd signed the contract and I knew what the role entailed. I was going to start the Monday after, but after the crash, I couldn't get a hold of my new boss for 9 months, and he finally told me I got the job in November, even though I had accepted it in February. He also comments how I've never been into the office when he gave me a tour in January 2020, and we spent the day together. The role I'm in is completely different than the papers I signed. My loving, awesome boyfriend was physically abusive for the first time that night. He got blacked out and attacked me, choking me. He was crying the next day, and nothing like this had ever happened before. I thought he was traumatized from the crash and let it go. That was another thing that was different. I would have never let that go before. I came from a loving childhood where my dad was my best friend always. I would have never put up with that before the crash, and I was shocked I did. In the old timeline, I was on a low dose of Effexor, Xanax, and blood pressure medication. I don't take any medication at all this timeline. Over the next year, a series of weird things that don't make any sense keep happening to the point where I start to feel suspicious. I all of a sudden have an incurable disease I didn't have before. I'm in pictures. I have no idea what the context is. I'm wearing clothes I don't own anymore. My friends have memories of me I don't share, and I'm getting more and more depressed. Boyfriend keeps physically abusing me, and I can't get out of it. I have no will to save myself. I just keep thinking, this can't be my life. This isn't my life. It just felt like I wasn't supposed to be here. And I finally look at Reddit and realize that I died in the snowmobile crash, and this is an alternative timeline I'm in. I start to disagree with friends when they say, remember when you said this as that and we went here and did this? But I have no recollection. My CAT scans are normal at this point after visiting the ER. To be honest, I wasn't the most observant person to begin with. A new couch could be in the living room for days and I wouldn't notice. So when all the stores and shops are different in one area of town, I don't know if that was always there or new. I finally work up the nerve to tell my sister, who is surprisingly supportive. She asks what else is different. There was this song in the other timeline. It was a very popular song by a Shania Twain or Sheryl Crow type. Anyone would know it. I sing it to her with the lyrics and tell her we always used to listen to it growing up. She has no recollection of it. I type the words into Google. The song doesn't exist here. The longer I'm in this timeline, the more I forget the words and melody of the old song. Also, there was no iPhone 13 in the other timeline because Steve Jobs was superstitious and it was supposed to go from iPhone 12 to iPhone 14. I notice little glitches like that are stupid and don't matter. How do I feel about it now? I've accepted my new reality. I feel bad for my sister and parents in the old timeline that they're dealing with my death in a freak snowmobile accident. But there's nothing I can do. Trying to find them again would be like trying to walk from Canada to Australia with no map. Impossible and a waste of time. I'm just making my reality the best I can now. It clearly for some reason wasn't my time to die. I mean to the point of going to the afterlife if there is one. So I should do something important if I can. I was always agnostic before this but didn't believe in different timelines. I thought movies like The Butterfly Effect and Run Lola Run were dumb concepts. Now I don't rule out anything ever. Edit. A few people asking questions. I'll answer best I can. First, no, I'm not with the guy anymore. He is dumped and blocked. To answer questions about the iPhone, here's my comment to another user. Jobs died in 2011, in the old timeline as well, but he had planned out the designs for the phones way past when he died because he knew he had cancer. He had an elaborate release plan of the phones in the future. Did he not hear? And yes, he designed them so that the iPhone 13 would be skipped because he was superstitious. Have I been to therapy? Yes. I've been to multiple therapists, psychiatrists, counselors. I can't find any evidence of the Effexor prescription I had, and don't know who would have prescribed it. The bottles were just gone. I don't rule out that I bumped my head, and some bad shit happened to the world after that. That's just my theory. I see a lot of people saying, I want to believe you, but, I mean, that's really your choice. Doesn't impact me either way. Just wanted to share my story.